Good morning. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Arlington. We're glad you're here this morning. We are a congregation that welcomes all people, people of all backgrounds, races, genders, sexual orientations, disabilities, and abilities, both seen and unseen. At UUCA, we encourage people to come for community, find inspiration, and live with purpose together. My name is Rachel Burnett, and I'm a new member of your Board of Trustees. Today is Sunday, July 16th, and whether this is your first time worshiping with us or this is your regular Sunday routine, you are welcome here. I'd like to remind you of a few activities happening today after this morning's service. Prior to the pandemic, UUCA regularly organized a services auction as an opportunity to raise funds and while also creating opportunities for connection and community. If you're interested in bringing back this joyful event, please join our kickoff planning meeting today in the boardroom, which is to your right as you leave the sanctuary and down the hall, from 11:30 to 12:15. Also today, Moonfire will be celebrating Lunasa at 1 p.m. in the Reeves Center, which is to your left as you exit the sanctuary. They'll be preparing for the first harvest and meditating on personal goals, successes, disappointments, and our own harvests with a potluck afterwards. Note this is a slight change from the usual time. And finally, if something today resonates with you, inspires you, or prompts a question for you, Bill Fogarty will be facilitating an open discussion about the service in the volunteer room, which is just to the right of the entrance doors you came in. And that will be happening immediately following the closing music. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel, and thank you, Jesse, for the music this morning. Welcome, folks. I'm so glad you're here, whether you're joining us here in the sanctuary or online, joining us from at home or wherever you happen to be in this moment. As has become our tradition, you're now invited to turn to your neighbor and extend a welcome or a greeting and maybe introduce yourself if you don't know that person. Welcome back, folks. This morning's call to worship comes from my colleague, Barbara Pescan. One of the old ones stood up into the morning light and spoke to those who had come back to the river. Now we have come again to this place. It is a good thing. My life apart from you is not as strong. Yes, I have danced, and I have told the stories at my own fire, and I have sung to all the 6 directions. But when I am with you, friends, I know better who it is in me that sings. Friends, let us come and worship together. This morning, we light our candle of compassion, as has become another one of our traditions. And we light the candle of compassion this morning, holding in our hearts today those who are struggling with behavioral health, isolation, and loneliness. Folks who are looking for a reason to wake up in the morning. We also light our candle of compassion for those who are suffering from incredible heat and flooding and other effects of climate change. Our hearts are with you. And we also light our chalice this morning. And we gather together as a community of memory and hope to celebrate life and its infinite possibilities for love. And please join me with the words in your order of service. We light this chalice as a symbol of the light within every human heart. May our individual sparks meet and merge, bringing both light and warmth to the world. And this morning, Jesse's going to teach us our opening hymn. We're going to sing it through once in learning it, and then we're going to sing it through a second time. Jesse?
Yada die 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 da da die die. Yada die 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 da da die die. I will build this world from love. Yada die 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 da da die die. And you must build this world from love. Yada die 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 da da die die. And if we build this world from love, yada die 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 da da die die. Then God will build this world from love. Yada die 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 da da die die. And now your turn. I will build this world from love. Yada die 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 da da die die. And you must build this world from love. Yada die 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 da da die die. And if we build this world from love, yada die 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 da da die die, then God will build this world from love. Yada die 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 da da die die.
Thank you, Jesse, and thank you all for being willing to learn something new this morning. I'd like to invite now Emily Gilkinson up to share our wisdom lesson, the 3 questions. And I'd like to invite all the young folks that want to come up and sit on the chancel. You are welcome to bring your adult with you if you'd like.
Thank you, Greg. Oh, so you guys can sit a little bit so that you can see the book, if you want. Yeah, you want to come closer? Come sit down. You can sit on both steps. Yeah, and come sit here. I was going to have Davon hold the book, but maybe if you're sitting on my side, we can look at it together. I'm so glad that you're here. So today we are going to read a story called The 3 Questions, and it's about a young boy who has some big questions. Do you ever have some big questions that just run around in your mind? Does anybody have any big questions that they think about? I know Davon does.
School?
Some big questions about school, for example. what do I do to be good at school? What am I going to study when I grow up?
Home.
What's a big question you have about home?
I like to play.
You like to play. Sometimes we have big questions about what should I play today? And it feels like a really big question. Does that ever happen? You're like, I don't know what to play. Yeah. So this is a story about a boy who has 3 big questions. And one of the reasons that we come to church is it's a chance for us to share our big questions and share ideas that different people have about how to answer those questions. So here we go, the 3 questions. And this book is based on a story by Leo Tolstoy, and it's written and illustrated by John J. Muth. There once was a boy named Nikolai who sometimes felt uncertain about the right way to act. I want to be a good person, he told his friends, but I don't always know the best way to do that. Nikolai's friends understood and they wanted to help him. If only I could find the answers to my 3 questions, Nikolai continued, then I would always know what to do. You want to see the pictures? So his questions are, when is the best time to do things? Who is the most important one? And what is the right thing to do? So Nikolai's friends considered the first question. Sonia the heron spoke, to know the best time to do things, one must plan in advance. Do your parents ever say that? You have to make a plan. Yeah, Davon's dad says that a lot. Gogo the monkey had been rooting through some leaves to find something good to eat. You will know when to do things if you watch and pay close attention. Then Pushkin the dog, who was just dozing off, rolled over and said, you can't pay attention to everything. You need a pack. Do you know what a pack is, a dog pack? A group of dogs together. You need a pack to help you decide when to do things. For example, Gogo, a coconut is about to fall on your head. Sometimes other people can notice things. Nikolai thought for a moment, then he asked the second question, who is the most important one? Those who are closest to heaven, Sonia said, circling up to the sky. Those who know how to heal the sick, said Gogol, stroking his bruised noggin because the coconut did fall on his head. Those who make the rules, growled Pushkin. Nikolai thought some more. Then he asked his third question. What is the right thing to do? Flying, said Sonia. Having fun all the time, laughed Gogol. Fighting, barked Pushkin. Then the boy thought for a long while. He loved his friends. He knew they were all trying their best to help him answer his questions, but their answers didn't seem quite right. Do you think those are the right answers?
No, fighting isn't.
Fighting doesn't sound like a good idea. Having fun all the time? Maybe those are things.
You might get bonked in the head with the coconut if you shake the coconut tree a little bit.
That's true. So sometimes we can look for answers and
And also the boy can't fly.
yeah, the boy can't fly. Then an idea came to him. I know, he thought, I'll ask Leo the turtle. He has lived a very long time. Surely he will have the answers I am looking for. Nikolai hiked high up into the mountains where the old turtle lived all alone. When Nikolai arrived, he found Leo digging a garden. The turtle was old and digging was hard for him. I have 3 questions and I came to ask your help, Nikolai said. When is the best time to do things? Who is the most important one? And what is the right thing to do? Leo listened carefully, but he only smiled. Then he went on digging. You must be tired, Nikolai said at last. Let me help you. The turtle gave him his shovel and thanked him. And because it was easier for a young boy to dig than it was for an old turtle, Nikolai kept on digging until all the rolls were finished. Is that a nice thing for him to do? Yeah. But just as he finished, the wind blew wildly and rain burst from darkened clouds. As they moved towards the cottage for shelter, Nikolai suddenly heard a cry for help. What do you think's happened? What happened? A storm. Oh no. Running down the path, he found a panda whose leg had been injured by a fallen tree. Oh no! Carefully, Nikolai carried her into Leo's house and made a splint for her leg with a stick of bamboo. That's very creative. The storm raged on, banging the doors and windows. The panda woke up. "Where am I?" she said, "and where is my child?" Oh dear, there's a baby out there.
Oh man. This is the storm.
There's the storm out there.
And I see the child. It looks like its head.
The boy ran out of the cottage and down the path. The roar of the storm was deafening. Pushing against the howling wind and drenching rain, he ran further into the forest, where he found the panda's child cold and shivering on the ground. The little panda was wet and scared, but alive. Nikolai carried her inside and made her warm and dry. Then she laid her in her mother's arms. Leo smiled when he saw what the boy had done. The next morning, the sun was warm, birds sang, and all was well with the world. The panda's leg was healing nicely, and she thanked Nikolai for saving her and her baby from the storm. At that moment, Sonia, Gogol, and Pushkin arrived to make sure everyone was all right. Nikolai felt great peace within him. He had wonderful friends, and he had saved the panda and her child, but he also felt disappointed. He still had not found the answers to his 3 questions. So he asked Leo one more time. The old turtle looked at the boy. "But your questions have been answered," he said. "They have?" asked the boy. "Yesterday, if you had not stayed to help me dig my garden, you wouldn't have heard the panda's cries for help in the storm. Therefore, the most important time was the time you spent digging the garden. The most important one was me, and the most important thing to do was help me with my garden. Later, when you found the injured panda, the most important time was the time you spent mending her leg and saving her child. The most important ones were the panda and her baby, and the most important thing to do was to take care of them and make them safe. Remember that there is only one important time, and that time is now. The most important one is always the one that you are with. And the most important thing is to do good for those who is standing at your side. For these, my dear boy, are the answers to what is most important in the world. This is why we are here." So sometimes those big questions, we just have to stay in the moment and see what is around us. So I hope that you enjoyed the story. Thanks for sharing it with me. And I think we're going to send you to your class. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily.
Peace to you on your way. May you grow in love each day, meeting new friends and opening your mind to the wonders of the world you will find, to the wonders of the world you will find.
A big thank you to Emily for sharing that wonderful story this morning. I know I have a lot of big questions. That's how I ended up here. I hope that you all have some questions that you are bringing with you this morning, and just allowing yourself to sit with them, knowing that the people that are here right now are the most important people as we're sitting here together. I want to invite you now into a moment of meditation or prayer, or any position that matches your understanding of this moment here together. You might lower or soften your gaze or close your eyes if that's helpful. And maybe take a few deep breaths or breathe a few times in a way that's most comfortable for you. Let's settle into this quiet moment together. Today's prayer is an adaptation of Shantideva's prayer, and Shantideva was an 8th century Indian Buddhist monk. This adaptation is by my colleague, Karen G. Johnston. May I be a guard for those who need protection. When I seek protection, may I find it and share it. For those who wish to cross to a further shore, may I be a boat, a raft, a bridge. May I be open to the companionship of others as I make my way to places still before me. May I be a lamp in the darkness for all who seek it. May that light be never extinguished from my own sight and my own heart. May I be a resting place for the weary and be healing medicine for all who are sick. May I know the salve of others for my own afflictions, whether of the body or of the mind or of the heart. Where others see scarcity, may I see a vase of plenty, a tree of miracles. As part of the boundless multitudes of living beings, may I bring sustenance and awakening, freedom from sorrow, and may I delight in our common existence. Holding most tenderly those with broken hearts, let us sit together in this still moment. So may it be.
Fuente de amor, ven hacia mí y al corazón cántale tu compasión. Sol al volar, sube en la mar, hasta moldear la justicia de la vida. Arraigame, libérame, fuente de amor, ven a mí, ven a mí. Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart the stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
During the month of July, UUCA will share our plate with PFLAG. The message of PFLAG, keeping families together, is one of acceptance, inclusion, and love. Their mission lifts up the message of anti-oppression of LGBTQIA+ folks. PFLAG offers community support, information, and opportunities for activism to its attendees. Their Metro DC community groups help people to understand more about the experience of gender identity and sexual orientation. They create compassionate, safe spaces in a world filled with religious and cultural prejudices against LGBTQIA+ people. They also provide assistance and support to trans and other non-binary individuals. If you're interested in learning more about PFLAG, you can see Elizabeth Fogarty in the Fellowship Hall directly behind you after the service for more information. 70% of today's offering will be shared with PFLAG DC, and 30% of the offering will support our ongoing work here at UUCA. You can give today with cash in the plate, a check, or any of the methods listed in your order of service or on your screen. However you give, thank you for your support today. We are grateful. And will the ushers please take the collection at this time? Thank you, Jesse. Thank you. We bless and receive these gifts, opening our hearts to true generosity. And please join me with the words in your order of service. Let us be grateful when we give, be it time, talent, or treasure. Let us be grateful for our needs and the experience of vulnerability. And let us be grateful for those who share their gifts to nurture this congregation. Thank you. So today is the second Sunday of our Six Sources Summer Series. My communications person would not let me enter any more S alliterations into that, in case you're wondering. But today we're going to explore today we're exploring in the series each source of our living tradition of Unitarian Universalism. And our exploration brings in voices and stories for each source to hear how they're actually lived, both personally and socially. If you're not familiar with UU's six sources, you can think of them as sources for inspiration to live our best lives. And they can be described as the sense of wonder we all share, influential people from long ago and today, people whose lives remind us to be kind and fair, the ethical and spiritual wisdom of the world's religions, Christian and Jewish teachings which tell us to love all of others as we love ourselves, humanist teachings that rely upon reason and the discoveries of science, and the harmony of nature and the sacred circle of life. This morning, we're looking at the world's religions, and specifically Buddhism and Hinduism. We'll hear from Stig Regli and Niharika Cheburjo, members of our UUCA community. And these are stories about how they have lived Buddhism and Hinduism. And this is one story, and you're invited to hear it as one story. I'm always fascinated to hear why and how folks come to Unitarian Universalism and even come here, right here to Arlington. It's really wonderful to know who is our neighbor, who is sitting next to us, who are greeting in the morning. As a way of introducing Stig's sharing on Buddhism, I want to share some words from the Theravadan Buddhist nun and teacher, Ayya Khema. It is often thought that the Buddha's doctrine teaches us that suffering will disappear if one has meditated long enough, or if one sees everything differently. It is not that at all. Suffering isn't going to go away. The one who suffers is going to go away.
I can see clearly now the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me down. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. Oh yes, I can make it now, the pain is gone. All of the bad feelings have disappeared. Here is the rainbow I've been praying for. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day.
All right, Stig. Come up.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here, and so much gratitude for what preceded today, because it was a sense of celebration for much of what I've found in connection with the practice of meditation and Buddhism. In fact, the three questions from Tolstoy, I remember having that reading in Neighboring Faiths when I was such a teacher here, and the inquiring into what's going on in the moment, the arrival into nowness. Nowness, I think, feeds directly into the dissolution of the self, which Ayya Khema was referring to. So this is a very integrated inquiry that we do as a community here, and which is one of the main reasons I'm standing here speaking today. There's been a lot of history behind this church and myself, but I wanted to begin with a few basic tenes of what the Buddha taught when he was first realizing his awakening. And this goes back 2,500 years, where he declared the Four Noble Truths. And these are tenes that are consistent with across-the-board sects of Buddhism, and the understanding, the aspiration for following along with these, discovering these truths is very much part of the practice. And the first of these truths is that there is dukkha, which is a Pali word, which has some issues with translation, but suffering, stress, disease. The Buddha was kind of a clinician of the mind, doctor, so disease, ill at ease, it's pervasive in our lives. It comes and goes. In fact, I was feeling some of that here in anticipation of being here speaking and how to find this integration with what was preceding here. So there's a little proliferation on my part, just feeding into the theme of what's to come. And so this first noble truth, the advice was to investigate what is life, which is directly fitting into the theme of the three questions, and the arrival then in nowness being very important. So the first noble truth has also recognized origin, a cause, which feeds into what our task is, if you think of a task, but that is that dukkha, unsatisfactoriness, which is probably the closest translation that I can relate to. There is a sense of the craving. We tend to want things. We want life to be different than it is. We want relationships to be different than they are. We want the world to be different than it is. And there's a craving energy that feeds into this suffering. At the same time, there is also it feeds into the third noble truth, where the relinquishment of craving is available. It's available. It's something that can be processed, developed, and in little tidbits of insight, which is what we are about as a community, insight, helping each other understand the nature of what's going on with each of us, learning from each other. That feeds into the path, the Noble Eightfold Path, which is basically a remedy that feeds into our capacity for waking up in each moment as it's happening, moving into a process of discovery, a process of curiosity, versus trying to get somewhere. And that process is one of available joy, if you will. The Buddha was known as the happy one, even though there's so much linkage to suffering and the nature of the problem. But he ultimately was recognized as the happy one. And he found a peace, a flow, an interconnection with the arrival of entering into nowness. And out of that came wisdom and compassion, because of the sense of people being separated from that. This separation. And here at UU, there's an aspiration for common understanding and what is it that integrates us with everything. I like to move my hands around, but it's probably a release of my own inner anxiety, the movement of the hands that helps me flow. I can't flow with the words, so I flow with the body in my own way. But so my journey with Buddhism came from a very challenging time in my life, but it had been preceded by an inner angst. The kids here were asked to, what are your questions? What are the most important questions? And for me, I sat in an Episcopalian church, and I would pose the question, what happens when we die? Tell me what happens when we die. Well, you go to heaven, they said. Or well, what is that? What happens? What happens to my dog when it dies? Or, what happens to... I had full questions, and there was an inner angst of meaning that started very early on. And that inner angst stayed with me through much of my life, inspiring me to try to live as fully as I could, which involved doing as much as I could, seeing as much of the world, traveling, learning cultures, languages, and working in these environments too. And I was a restless being, very restless. I arrived somehow in Thailand with my wife, who was stationed with the AID, the State Department, doing work with public health. And I tagged along as a consultant. And our marriage there was we were struggling. And my mother had just passed away. I had no job, and I was in Thailand. So there was an opportunity for digging into the meditation practice, learning what could be discovered. That was my seeking. And out of that, living in the monastery I did an intensive retreat from morning to night, formally meditating, eating meditation, sitting with Thai people, sitting with foreigners, and all of that fed into a sense of community and a realization of something that I had been missing, something I had been looking for my whole life. A little taste of freedom that diminished this inner anxiety. And with that, I came with an inspiration to follow these four foundations and the Noble Eightfold Path with a very heavy load of inner work and meditation. I went back to EPA, which I had left a couple of times, having started there from 79 until 84 when I got back. There was a sense of that restlessness finding its way in. When I got back to EPA, I wound up staying there for 35 years, the same place. And so that inner discovery that had happened with the monastery there and the teachings and the Sangha, the community, the sense of community, that fed into an ease within in spite of all the turbulence outside. And there was lots and lots of that. And that settled me down and helped me listen. I'm a terrible listener. I still am. It's getting worse as I'm aging. But there is a sense of when the mind is focused and directed, it can improve its listening capacity. And it relates to a sense of also wanting to know what's going on with other people. How are they feeling about things? And that spirit found its way into my work at EPA. And a lot of good things happened as a result of that. Public health became my avenue of giving back, if you will, to the world, public health, and working with consensus among people to do this. And through that, while at EPA, I found other spiritual communities. Bhavana, Highview out in West Virginia, a couple hours from here. Went on retreats out there and deepened the practice. And I went up to Insight Meditation Society in Barre, Massachusetts, another place of doing retreats. Each place was sort of bringing up new storms of dukkha and also some sense of possible freedom from that. And then I found IMCW. It wasn't IMCW when I started being with the community there. Tara Brach was leading this, and I was one of the helpers to make that community flourish. And then I became a teacher of IMCW. And so that teaching then fed into ultimately being invited to teach here. And what a delight that was when I first came here. I remember referring to a poem from Walden and the connection with the transcendental literature and that aspiration of connection. Yeah, I got to really be mindful up here. I'm not practicing what... It's an ongoing challenge for me, but reminders like this is there an ease in doing that instead of getting uptight about it? That's really the seed of possibility. So I started teaching here, and then it grew, and Jonathan Faust then he joined, and we were doing this together. He became a very humorous person and when he would give his talks, and I think he was much more talented than I was in speaking. And I had also lots of family responsibilities that I was working on, and so it was extending too much. I have an inner sort of a greedy type disposition that I'm still working with in a big way. Wanting more and more, extending too much often in the choices I make, and being impatient to to realize what's being grabbed for. So that fed also into an appreciation of the program here, the RE program, the Neighboring Faiths.
You've got about a minute left.
Okay. The Neighboring Faiths was a real treasure to find. I started doing that. We had 2 adopted daughters from China, and they came, and through that I taught. And more recently, I've come back to the involvement here with IMCW. We have a bunch of activities with the Buddhist Fellowship. We have the meditation on Monday nights, and this is with partnership with IMCW. We also have a silent meditation on Wednesdays. This is led by Susan Chastain and Bob Gare, and the silent meditation and reflection. And then on Fridays, we have First Light meditation. This is led by Greg Forte and David McTaggart. And here's a silent meditation and reflection afterwards. So there's a lot going on, and there's a lot that can be seen from the newsletters that go out in the UUCA web. And so again, I just appreciate your timing, and I appreciate the Sangha. Somebody's telling me, stop now. You get, this is good. This is why we have Sangha. We help each other, okay? And I'm still a person who needs lots of help. So I bow to you for being here and having the patience to bear with me. And thank you so much, Greg, for I also want to acknowledge Naharika. Naharika was a real partner in the Neighboring Faiths, and you're going to hear more words from her now. So thank you again, and your patience in listening.
Thank you, Sig. Thank you, Sig. I'm always interested to hear how some of our stories connect in the threads, and hearing not only in your story and my story and others, but that what is our relationship with suffering, right? That's a lot of what, Stig, you were talking about. What's our relationship with suffering, and what is our curiosity around that? Can we sit with ourselves and be curious? Can we be curious about ourselves, be curious about each other, the people that are sitting to the left of you, to the right of you, and understanding how we are here together in community, and hopefully working our way toward joy, something that is life-giving and heart-expansive. Next, we're going to hear from Niharika, and as a way to introduce Niharika, I'm going to read something from Swami Vivekananda, who's best known in the United States for his groundbreaking speech where he introduced Hinduism to America and called for religious tolerance and an end to fanaticism. He's also considered a key figure in the introduction of Vedanta and yoga to the West, and is credited with raising the profile of Hinduism to that of a world religion. This is an excerpt from his speech delivered on September 11th, 1893, at the First World's Parliament of Religions in Chicago. Sisters and brothers of America, I am proud to belong to a religion which has taught the world both tolerance and universal acceptance. We believe not only in universal toleration, but we accept all religions as true. I am proud to belong to a nation which has sheltered the persecuted and the refugees of all religions and all nations of the earth. Sectarianism, bigotry, and its horrible descendant fanaticism have long possessed this beautiful earth. They have filled the earth with violence, drenched it often with human blood, destroyed civilization, and sent whole nations to despair. I fervently hope that the bell that tolled this morning in honor of this convention may be the death knell of all fanaticism, of all persecutions with the sword or with the pen, and of all uncharitable feelings between persons wending their way to the same goal.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round attendees' fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change, life from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change and life from deep within the earth. It is time now, it is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
Can we please give it up for Jesse? Stig and Greg and I have thrown music at Jesse in the past 48 hours. I have found bootleg sheet music on the internet and just thrown it at them, and they've pulled it out today on a dime. So once again, Jesse, thank you. But what an honor it is to share the chancel today with Stig and Greg and Jesse and all of you here. I'm shaking a little bit in my shoes because Stig is a very tough act to follow. But I'm the one who told him to go first. So I have no one else to blame but myself. But really, thank you so much, Greg, for the wonderful reading. Good morning, dear ones. Here in the sanctuary and online. Hi, Mom. We have moms watching. My mom's watching from India. My mother-in-law is watching from the rural Midwest. So hi, moms. But how is that Swami Vivekananda's words are still as pertinent today as they were in 1893? Why are we still talking about peace and ending sectarianism and ending fanaticism? I am Niharika Joe, and my family and I have called UCA our faith home for, about, 5 or 6 years now, give or take the pandemic decade. But it was around then that our second grader's buddy came running up to me and said, Alexander's mom, does Alexander believe in our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? This was a 6-year-old. And before I could respond, Alexander hollered from the other room, "Who's Jesus Christ?" And that's when my husband and I froze and silently mouthed expletives. So a week later, here we were at UCA's door because there was this big question and probably more questions and the 3 questions. And to be honest, I'm not sure our kid still knows who Jesus Christ is. But what about me? I didn't come to Unitarian Universalism because I was running away from dogma or doctrine, or because I needed a cleanse, or because I didn't fit elsewhere, or because I needed refuge and acceptance. I came to Unitarian Universalism because I was born and raised Hindu. I didn't arrive at Hinduism the way Stig arrived at Buddhism in this, the quest for and thirst for knowledge. I was just born and raised Hindu. And as a Hindu, I am liberal as an attitude to life. My instinct is to accept people as I find them and to allow them to be and become what they choose as long as it doesn't harm anybody else. I question God's authority and omnipotence. I respect everyone's right to believe or not to believe. I believe there are multiple paths to reach the ultimate truth. So I am a UU because I'm a Hindu. One of Hinduism's greatest strengths, I believe, is the lack of prescriptive principles. So by definition, it is an accepting and diverse belief system where every believer's journey is deeply personal and unique to them. Does that sound familiar? I was born Hindu like millions, but my Hinduism is plural, it's eclectic, it's inclusive, and it's expansive. It's one of experience and upbringing. I grew up in a Hindu household and was raised by soldiers and teachers, and I grew up celebrating Eid with my 6 Muslim cousins, going to Christmas Eve Mass with the nuns from my Catholic elementary school. I light lamps on Diwali and fast during Ramadan in solidarity with my cousins. I can recite our Lord's Prayer, the opening surahs of the Quran, and Shabbat blessings along with verses of the Bhagavad Gita. Neither my husband nor I were raised Jewish. He's back there, Wesley. Neither my husband nor I were raised Jewish, but we have a menorah by our Christmas tree next to Saraswati, the deity of learning. Because once upon a time, the self-same sanctimonious 4-year-old, he was 4-year-old then, our son, had demanded to know why there was no menorah in our house. Inclusivity of other religions is what characterizes my personal experience with Hinduism. When I recently had COVID, my mom prayed fervently in the direction of the Basilica of Our Lady of Graces, located in a small town in northern India. My father told me the Grand Master of the universe would take care of my illness, and my stepfather simultaneously invoked Lord Shiva while I lamented not having access to Paxlovid. Growing up, my soldier grandfather had a prayer room where after his daily shower, he'd stand in front of a statue of Lord Krishna, ring a little bell, light some sandalwood incense, chant a few Sanskrit words, while simultaneously cursing in English at the rescue python, yes, python, my cousin and I had decided to take for a walk in exactly that room at exactly that time. His daughter, my mother, has a prayer altar at home. On it, a few eclectic statues of deities jostle with photos of dearly departed ancestors, a picture from the Vatican, some sacred thread from a Muslim shrine, fresh fruit offered to the deities and ancestors to fight over, and a tiny oil lamp that must be lit at dusk by one of the kids. It must be lit at dusk because that's what mom desires, not because scripture dictates it be so. And none of us want to light it because mom is making us do it. It's like walking the dog. Unlike Abrahamic faiths, Hinduism is pantheistic. It assumes as human beings we're different and different people naturally need different pathways to the divine. As a result, Hindus worship the divine in millions of different forms, and this is perhaps the Hinduism we're all familiar with. God can have 10 arms, or an elephant head, or look like a monkey, reflecting the divine's infinite aspects. God can be androgynous. God can be non-binary. God is everywhere. More importantly, there is nowhere God cannot be. When I first moved to the United States, my mother had a special prayer said at the shrine of a famous Sufi saint of the Chishti order. I had arrived at Dulles Airport with an Islamic-style prayer talisman around my neck. It was to help me do well in graduate school, courtesy of said saint. In the wake of 9/11, I took it off and kept it on my own prayer altar. But of late, I put it on when I fly internationally, through the Middle East especially. If needed, I can also recite the opening verses of the Quran to prove I am not a Hindu nationalist. What exactly does that mean? You all read the news. I've just been telling you about the acceptance and grace that Hinduism offers. But that's not the Hinduism we've been reading about in the media, is it? It certainly isn't the Hinduism we hear about in the news anymore. In fact, it's not Hinduism at all. It's a concept called Hindutva, born out of the politics of division. Hindutva is inherently at odds with the inclusivity of true Hinduism. For instance, it asserts that even a person who is inarguably of Indian heritage cannot be Indian if they are not Hindu. Sit with that for a minute. You can be born and raised Hindu, you can have generations of Indians in your family, you can be anybody in India, but if you are not a practicing Hindu or somebody who claims they are Hindu, you are not Indian. So a practicing Indian Muslim cannot claim to be a real Indian. So now if Hindutva is starting to sound Nazi-like, you're not wrong. The early founders and adopters of the Hindutva concept were known Nazi apologists. One of them even notoriously suggested that India should implement its own Holocaust to purge the country of non-Hindus. Although this could not be more clearly in opposition to my Hinduism's fundamental inclusivity or the lived Hinduism of a vast majority of Hindus, it merely piggybacks on the faith claiming to represent Hinduism and has proudly been embraced as a national ideology by India's ruling party. It is Hindutva that compels me to brush up on my knowledge of Islam when I travel. It is Hindutva that has alienated me from friends and extended family who call me a traitor and a libtard for refusing to embrace a self-serving, violent, hateful, unrelenting, sectarian, divisive, weaponized version of my faith. They call me secular because I am secular, but I must really be sick because I am inclusive and accepting. Here at UCA, I've been an RE Sunday school teacher for a few years. Stig was my partner in crime. I found a home in the 7th grade neighboring faiths class where Stig and his team welcomed me with open hearts. In class, we compare our sibling religions with our own so youth become better grounded in faith and clarify their own particular UU identity. With our 7th graders is where I, the teacher, have found articulation around the faith I was born into. While grounding myself in my UU-ness up here in the sanctuary, I have recognized and re-acknowledged my own Hindu-ness down in RE. So, as I continue to learn from our children here at UCA, my Hindu UU-ness allows me to give my own child the cultural and spiritual moorings that will allow him the openness to embrace any faith that speaks to him and the wisdom and curiosity to ask questions. There are 3 questions or more questions. But I'd like to leave us today with a cleanse. I offer you a reading from, Stig mentioned 2,500 years ago, the Buddha. I can top that, I can do 3,500 years. I offer you a reading from the 3,500-year-old Rig Veda. The Rig Veda is the oldest known Vedic Sanskrit text, and this, dear ones, is an excerpt from the creation hymn. And here are the big questions. It is perhaps from this that my Hindu-ness emanates, and perhaps my UU-ness as well. Then there was neither non-existence nor existence. Then there was neither space nor the sky beyond. Then there was neither death nor immortality. That one breathed breathlessly and self-sustaining. There was that one then, there was no other. What was above? What was below? Then seeds were sown and mighty power arose. Below was strength, above was impulse. Who really knows and who can say? Whence did it all come? How did creation happen? The gods themselves are later than creation. So who knows truly whence this great creation sprang? Who knows this creation and when it had its origin? He, whether he fashioned it or whether he did not. He who surveys it all from the highest heaven, he knows, Or maybe he doesn't know. Or maybe he doesn't know. Thank you.
Thank you, Niharika, for sharing your story. And it really is a privilege to have insight into people's personal journey and the way that we together understand the universe and what it means for us to be in this world. So thank you both for your sharing today. And now we're going to sing our closing hymn, number 1031, just the final verse. That starts with we, or that uses the we. So please rise and body your spirit as you're able to sing our closing hymn.
May we be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be whole.
Thank you all for joining us here today to hear some stories about ways to live our best lives. And we're going to extinguish our chalice now. Please join me with the words in your order of service. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light and warmth it represents. These we carry with us, bringing our sparks of love to the world. And we close today with a traditional Buddhist prayer. May you be at peace. May your heart remain open. May you awaken to the light of your own true nature. May you be healed. May you be a source of healing for all beings. And go with peace, friends.